Thank you very much, everybody. So this panel will talk about what is the strategic investment for the United States and our national agenda, and what's happening from a corporate side and on a venture capital platform. To start this discussion, I want to go directly to Jon Frenkel, who is spending a lot of time and his efforts and capital investing in artificial intelligence and disruptive technologies. Jon, I'm going to go directly to you. There have been indications now in the media and other places that we may be experiencing so-called AI winter again, or AI freeze. Is this true? And what are you seeing in the marketplace here in New York and the United States?
So I think if you see articles about AI winters, it's simply because we've had a couple in the past. And so people are saying, is that happening now? And I think what's important to understand is if you go back 30, 40 years when Silicon Valley got started, they followed Moore's law. And you had a predictable path of innovation, which leads to everybody in this room having a supercomputer in their pocket. And then with network effects, you have Metcalfe's law that talked about a power curve of power of networks that people could invest along. But when you look at AI, you need fundamental discoveries to move things forward. And over the last 5 years or so, we've had a whole slew of fundamental discoveries that have made voice interfaces actually useful, that have got us far closer to the dream of self-driving vehicles and the like. And these advances have been amazing. However, there is no law about the fundamental discovery of new advances. And at some point, there'll be a period where we don't have any new innovation in the space. And people will call that an AI winter. But you can only see it in the past. And when I talk to experts in the field about areas such as when can I go to my local Ford dealer and buy a car without a steering wheel, the answers I get vary. Some say 2025, some say 2040, some say beyond that. And the delta on that is because you can't predict when we will discover things that we need to actually complete the loop on these utilities. But within AI, we don't see that. We see AI, like mobile and cloud before them, as fundamental technology shifts where there are things you can do today with the technology that's already been discovered and invented today, which is 10 times better at doing a given task, or allows a task to be done at 1/10 the cost. And we're seeing that, particularly in vertical solution enterprise, a tremendous amount of opportunity.
Jon, just go back quickly to you. Again, you're seeing a lot of companies come through your desk in all different vertical segments and even horizontals. CBI Insight is saying AI is indeed, at least last quarter of 2017, was heating up across industries like healthcare, cybersecurity, commerce, and advertising, marketing, and fintech. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, AI is going to be like electricity was in the 1920s, or the internet was a couple of decades ago, or mobile a decade ago. Everyone's going to talk about it as something different, and then it will just drop into the fabric of everything. No one talks about, they're a mobile company today, or they're an internet company today, and in a decade, no one will say they're an AI company. And when I look at places like New York, I think there's tremendous opportunity because the company's being disrupted by AI, and we're seeing corporates pay an incredible amount of attention to this tech stack because it is exponentially disruptive. The corporate base in New York across multiple industries really mean that, combined with the educational infrastructure here and the engineering infrastructure that's been built up over the last decade, means that New York is going to be a hotbed for AI companies to be born and grown over the next few years.
Jon, just very few last questions I want to ask you. You're meeting LPs coming after this meeting. You're meeting quite a few LPs. What if LPs gave you a check today for $100 million? How would you spend that $100 million? Where would you invest that $100 million if you received a check from an LP today?
Oh, I think there's an enormous number of places. you can invest $100 million like this.
In which places would you recommend to this audience that, as a general partner, you would invest?
I think an area that intrigues me a lot are voice interfaces. And the reason for that is for any tech stack to really be functional, you need consumers to change their behavior. And what Alexa and Google Home and Siri have taught us is if the technology works, people want to interact in that way. Now, there are disadvantages. I find it very difficult to build a spreadsheet by talking to Alexa. So there are certain things it's great at and certain things it's not great at. But I think voice interfaces, customer service, using AI to handle the more mundane tasks within that role, that's an area that I think is going to be a massive business, a massive boon for the companies that have large number of customers, and I think there'll be a whole industry that's built around that.
John, finally, before you go, are you concerned about valuations of the Chinese companies? We're seeing on the media company Sensor Time, a computer vision company valuated at $6 billion at investment of $600 million that went in for this company. That was Bloomberg reported this was the biggest investment in startup ever, in AI startup. Are you concerned about those types of valuations coming from China?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about China and AI and technology that I really can't address that side of it. I will tell you this, people who cut a $600 million check into a company, it's tough to call that venture and it's tough to call that a startup. Startups are usually 3 or 4 people with a deck trying to solve a problem. Sometimes it's a few more people, sometimes it ends up being a bigger check. But fundamentally, the startup culture that's grown up in the US has been driven by people with outrageous ideas where they think they can change the behavior of millions of people over time in what they're doing or change how corporations really do what they do. And with 600 million, I wouldn't know what to do with it, and it'd be very difficult to call that a startup or venture in my book.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you.
Not so.
Yeah. Sanjit, now the question is to you. You represent the largest corporate venture investment fund. In fact, I think it's the largest institutional corporate fund globally. What trends are you seeing in the area of cognitive and AI? And where do you see Intel Capital investing in the future? Which disruptive technologies are they taking investments, and what trends are you seeing?
Just for the audience, Intel Capital is the venture capital arm of Intel Corporation. We invest roughly $400 to $500 million every year in startups. So that makes us like $6 billion fund. And that's why Mark is referring to it as one of the largest venture funds, not just one of the largest corporate venture funds. I think the big areas that we are investing into are data and AI. And we actually feel that they go together. You can't be investing into AI without looking at data, because data fuels the AI revolution. And a lot of the AI algorithms are getting open sourced. So like John also mentioned, AI will be like electricity. It will be everywhere. The differentiation, we believe, from an investment standpoint, will be in data as the time grows. And in terms of sectors that we are focused on, Intel made a big bet on Mobileye in the transportation sector. Intel acquired Mobileye, which is an Israeli company, for over $15 billion last year. So we see transportation as one of the big sectors that is going through a whole transformation. And we see a compute opportunity. We actually see tens of CPUs being used on a car together with local AI, and then data going to the cloud. That's a model we see, client compute model we see in the transportation sector. So transportation is one of the big focus areas for Intel as a company, and hence Intel Capital as well. Beyond that, retail and industrial are other 2 big areas that we are investing into. As we all see, because of the rise of e-commerce in general and from the rise of Amazon in particular, commerce is going through a transformation. but we believe it will be omni-channel that will win the game at the end. It's not just e-commerce versus brick and mortar retail. So there are significant efforts within Intel on bringing data to the retail industry and data-based AI solutions to the retail industry, and similarly on the industrial sector side.
Thank you very much, Anjeet. Today we had a number of discussions today that alluded to the convergence of biological, physical, and digital. What are you seeing that in that convergence? Are you seeing investments that Intel is making, or the industry overall, Microsoft, Google, and others are making in this convergence of biological, physical, and digital?
I think we are already in the era where digital has taken over the physical world in importance and reach. I think that anybody who is still questioning that is behind in mentality, period. The next question is, once you have digitization, what do you do with it? How do you bring biological and other psychological, other factors into it? And we believe neuroscience is going to play a role there as well. So that's an era that's going to come up in the next 10 to 15 years, and it's going to be massive. You're going to be able to do a Google search without typing or speaking at all. We would be able to read your mind waves and understand what you are thinking right now without even talking to you. That's the era we are going to be in, and those mind waves will be deciphered as if it's like AI. It's everywhere around you. So data, we are in a data explosion industry. And with digital, we have gone from 1x to 10x. With biological, we're going to go to 100x, I feel.
One other question to you, Sanjit, before we jump to Deborah to talk about the national investment agenda. The question relates to what are some of the hottest, I know that we have to be, we're going to be subjective in a way, but from your opinion, professional opinion, as you've been investing for many, many years and looking at trends and looking at the companies that will be successful over a period of time with track record, what types of portfolios, what type of companies and startups do you think are going to be the new Microsofts, the new Googles, the new Facebooks that you're now seeing today?
Yeah, I think we are seeing new paradigm shifts coming up. Anybody who is thinking, hey, I can be the next Facebook, has lost it. If you want to be as big as Facebook, you have to change the rules of the game to start with. You have to play a different game than what Facebook is playing. If you play the Facebook game and aspire to be better than Facebook, you're going to lose. So we are seeing companies that are coming up and saying, hey, how do I become a massive data play in a game that nobody else is playing? And that's what we keep looking out for. And there are companies, there's a company, by the way, I intentionally am mentioning about companies that we have no relationship with. So this is a very unbiased opinion. There's a company out of India that put free Wi-Fi in all the businesses, small mom and pop shops in Delhi, free Wi-Fi. They said, I'll collect your data. So any data that goes through Wi-Fi routers, this company is collecting. They said, hey, Facebook gets all your data through the Facebook app. I'll get all your data from all the apps you use through this router. Now that's changing the game. That's collecting data at scale and playing a game that nobody else is playing, right? So those are the kinds of plays that we look for. And we really believe from an investment standpoint, data is a new oil. So anybody, whenever I meet an entrepreneur, I ask myself, how will this person get to an unfair advantage in terms of data? Another example is a company, this one is actually my investment, a company in Boston called TrueFit. It has 70 million users today and adding 3 million users a month. And all it does is fitting recommendation based on data. So when you try to buy a shirt online on Macy's.com, you will see a red T that pops up and asks you, hey, do you want me to recommend the best fit? And if you say yes, it will ask you a very simple question. Choose from this drop-down menu which shirt from the closet fits you the best. That's it. And on the back end, they have mapped out 200 attributes of every shirt out there. So they're sitting on a data gold mine. Those are the companies we like. And lastly, DocuSign, I invested early on in DocuSign. DocuSign went IPO last month. So that's the kind of companies, those are the kinds of companies we look for, digitization, ushering in the digitization era and collecting data at scale.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to a national investment agenda because it's critical for the success of the United States. And if it is critical for the success of the United States, it is critical for the world. And now more important than ever, because China is now trying to push its weight across the world in the area of artificial intelligence and other disruptive technologies. Before asking Deborah a question, I'll just make a comment. Eric Schmidt, Google's parent company Alphabet, warned recently China is on track to surpass the United States in artificial intelligence by 2025 and dominate the industry by 2030, unless Americans change their minds very drastically. And the international community is actively discussing how to influence AI using global cooperation and national strength. The government of United Arab Emirates just appointed minister responsible for AI. Many things are changing. So Deborah, with the work that the United States Council of Competitiveness does across the industry, research, universities, what are you seeing in terms of the agenda for disruptive innovation and artificial intelligence in the United States? And more importantly, what should we do as Americans to fight the hegemony of China?
Our country right now is operating in a very low productivity environment. And at the Council on Competitiveness, we're really focused on what are going to be the next generation drivers of productivity. And as Sanjeet mentioned, you know, we have these three converging technologies of the digital, the genetic, and the cognitive. I would also add in the atomic. And so if you look at these and how they're impacting industry, services, it really is a movement to a new era. I would call it the age of illumination. We've talked about, you know, the data implications all day. The United States still spends 2/3 of global R&D from the federal government side. We have a massive investment. However, we are now faced with global competitors that are amassing resources and partners and capabilities on a scale that we've never seen before. And this is very, very serious because in the case of AI, also in the genetics and the nanotechnology, these are all profoundly disruptive for wealth creation and will drive productivity and standard of living, but they have huge national security implications. So from the perspective of the U.S. Council on Competitiveness, and we're meeting tomorrow with our group of chief technology officers across all sectors, we need to double down and ensure that we maintain our leadership at the frontiers of computing writ large. This means everything from moving beyond exascale into quantum and ensuring we have the talent and the people to participate in this enterprise. The other thing that we really need to do on a much bigger scale is bring all the resources and capability of our U.S. government from defense, from the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, our financial treasury, IRS. I mean, think of the IRS, the largest financial institution in the world, beginning to apply and use AI systems in order to optimize our tax system. But we're not doing yet that coordination and scale. And of course, if you read China's vision for AI, it really also ought to be a vision that we have in the US. I am very optimistic. The White House has launched a national artificial intelligence initiative that's going to be coupled with the National High Performance Computing Initiative. That's very good news. But a couple areas where we can really play a role in industry, and you all mainly are from industry, have to help on this. We have the opportunity still in the US, and I would say with some of our deep partnerships with Japan and the EU, to begin to set the global standards, and also some of the regulatory environments around ethics. This is going to be huge. I don't know about you all, but I'm very concerned to see the stories about AI being used in China for facial recognition, for social control, for people to have to go in and have their social citizenship score analyzed. These are very, very serious issues for democracy. So we need to marshal all our forces, government, industry, academia, and our fabulous national labs in this frontier. AI is going to be about a $17 trillion industry by 2030. And right now, it's really up to us in the U.S. the extent to which we're going to marshal our resources to continue in the leadership role. But dealing with non-tariff trade barriers, standards, regulation, and ethics will give us a competitive advantage going forward.
Thank you, Deborah. We're going to be finishing up our panel in a few minutes. I want to just say, and then we go for final comments from the panelists. The United Kingdom is announcing soon 200 million in AI investment in their country. That's going to be announced sometime next week. European Commission is outlining 24 billion investment between 2018 and 2020. The French government of Emmanuel Macron investing 1.8 billion in AI research until 2022. Canada is investing 125 million commitment in various hotspots around Canada. Russia is claiming that it will rule the world. It doesn't have to invest, and it will put whatever investment it is in a Russian military, $12.5 million. China, of course, we know that $14 billion fund has just been announced. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a major digital cognitive change around the world, ladies and gentlemen. Let's understand what's happening. This will affect every family, every corporation, every enterprise. It will affect our future generations. It will affect all of us. What we have learned today from all of the corporations that have spoken is about successful use cases. And what I venture to say to all of you, that we should combine use cases and our impressive return on AI with the work that governments are doing. Together, we could create success. And just for finally, I want to go to my panelists to make statements regarding national agenda or investments that you're seeing in the future. I'll start with you, Sanjay.
I think from an investment standpoint, US has the edge over data, and hence I think US will have edge over AI as long as we remain competitive and putting appropriate amount of dollars in that. If you look at the world map, you can almost redefine the world map today based on data. Where is China's data going? Staying within China. Where is India's data going? Going to US. So US has access to US data plus a lot of other countries' data as well via Facebook, etc. So I think the opportunity is for US to continue to shine and stay ahead of everybody else as long as we put dollars behind it.
Thank you. Deborah.
Well, one area that is really exciting that the U.S. government is leading in partnership with industry and academia is this whole challenge and opportunity beyond Moore's Law. As everyone in the room knows, we developed all of the underlying technologies, the chips, the software, everything that has enabled the digital age. But we, for a variety of very short-sighted reasons, de-invested in the manufacturing at scale. We need to pull together and leapfrog and invest at a huge level in the next generation of semiconductors. I think that's an Achilles heel. Of course, cybersecurity has been mentioned today. It's massive, it's huge. One data fact, I sometimes can't sleep at night because of this, but it's true. Back in 2013, I'm on the Commission for the Theft of American Intellectual Property. Back in 2013, a very conservative number. If China implemented their existing intellectual property laws, the United States would have 1.5 trillion more in GDP. It has only escalated. And this IP is being acquired through surgical, relentless cyber attacks. We have to build the capability against cyber into the chips, into the hardware, into the algorithms. Otherwise, we won't see the promise of all these technologies for prosperity and productivity and security.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you very much, Sanjay. And we enjoyed having this conversation with you. There are some exciting things ahead. Please stay tuned. Thank you.